Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the Straight Up Show podcast. I am your host, joined with my friend, nemesis, I don't know what you want to call her. But today we have Christina. Once again, it is an episode where Christina and Calvin are tag teaming together. Christina, how you doing today?
I'm doing good today. Doing good. You're trying to change that for me, but
I am. I am.
I'm making it.
I'm trying to change that for you because if y'all know, I had surgery and here I am back again. I think I sound better, but Christina really kind of made me feel bad about having surgery and just messing with me. So she's lucky she's invited back to
Um,
the show.
yeah, I made you feel bad. Yeah. So I called him the day of his surgery and he didn't pick up.
Did you call me really?
So I did. You remember?
I was
I called you
high.
before your surgery,
I
and
was high
he was
on some
like,
medication that I didn't know was
"Not even a
what.
caller back." I was
I
like, "Okay,
mean,
man. All right, cool."
I invite you on the show, so you're here with me. So yeah. But I'm just kidding. But no, it's always great to have Christina here. And like I said, once again, we're back. This is a new season, and I sound great. But Christina, like me, the last episode Christina and I did together solo was an episode that we talked about relationships. And the older that I am, uh, there's a lot I don't understand about the opposite sex. And I guess, but because when you're in high school, Christina, it's all about like girls, 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 and when you get to college, it's about girls, 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 and then like the older you get, the more you try to. And some people don't actually get to this point to where they actually like, hey, there's more than this. Just like you're thinking with your whatever, but there's a lot more to not just females but men as well. But some people don't understand what people go through in relationships and just within their personal lives, and so um, what I do is a lot of my guests come from Clubhouse. And it's an app that where it's kind of like a chat room, like the former AOL, like AIM. Everybody remembers AIM, and you just kind of socialize, and it's like you get to verbalize and talk to people. But I find myself because I am I'm kind of like a father figure to my niece. I don't have any kids of my own, but she's turning into a young female, and so I want to know more about, I guess, females itself because I've been in situations to where I was not as sensitive to some people's feelings, and I'm guilty of that, very guilty of that. And there are some things that some females go through that some men don't understand. So I purposely hang out in a all most majority female chat room on Clubhouse because they talk about just men not listening and what they want from men and stuff like that. So Christina, I'm big on like relationships and stuff like that because I'm still single. I'm 30 something years old and still single. So I'm big on trying to figure out, hey, why can't I get this right?
Clearly, it's you. But yeah, we'll just have to figure that part out later. We'll
Yeah,
do a
like
part two. We'll do a
do,
part two for you.
do a part two. But like, I think the more is that I don't, and I'm not speaking for all men, but me as a man, I have been insensitive on some subjects, and it's like some females do go through trauma, and it's the same trauma that I've been through personally with my family, and I've had a family member who was going through some issues, and I was there for them. I actually been stabbed over it, and it's personal, but I would do. Yeah, I don't think you knew that, Christina, did you? I've actually got
No,
stabbed over that. Yeah, and but
it
it was
wasn't me.
it wasn't you, no, but I was there for one of my relatives who needed my support in that situation, and I was able to go with them. So, with that being said, we definitely love our women, especially Christina. She is one of the strongest women that I know. Even though I give her a lot of stuff, but she is one of the strongest women that I know, and I do often look for her to support, especially with the show because Christina, I don't know if you know it, but a lot of our people that listen to our show, they love just our banter and our interaction with each other because you're so strong and you're so fearless. And so, and I'm not kissing up to you. Don't make that face. But you
I
were,
forgot you can see me this time. My
yeah,
bad.
I can see you. But no, you were a strong black woman, and that makes me so. I'm honored to be for you to be on our show. So, with that being said, there are so many women out there who don't have their story heard, and some women who out there who go through things and they don't really have an outlet, or if they've been through something, they don't know how to overcome it and push past their situations for a brighter future. So, on today's show, we have somebody that I know, one of my friends, Acacia, gives out to Acacia. She kind of started something brand new, and it's ways for women to deal with their trauma that they've been through, and to cope with it. So I want to bring on today, if y'all don't mind helping me welcome Miss Chrissy Christal of Self Reflection Girls and Women's Organization. Crystal, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being on our show today. I'm glad you were able to take time out your busy schedule to help us out.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. And I hope I gave you a proper intro so we can do this thing right and do it right by your organization.
You did.
All right. All right. So, Crystal, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Once again, my name is Christal Rhodes. I live in Irving, Texas, and I started kind of just a coaching practice that I now have that branched that led me into another field. And I would like to talk about that whenever you guys are ready for me to open up to that.
Yes, ma'am. And like I said, um, just if you don't mind, like I said, this is kind of like a very sensitive episode. And like I said, I told you earlier that you know I got to be careful. I'm being careful because I don't want to say the wrong things. But you have an amazing story of triumph, and like they always say, you can't have a testimony if you haven't been through a test. So if you don't mind, just tell us right quick. Uh, just give us your story. You don't have to talk about your organization just yet, but just tell us about your story and how you were able to get into coaching. And like I said, this show is straight up. So anything you want to say or you don't want to say, it's up to you. But we want to hear your story so we can kind of build up to why you got into this organization.
Okay. My story is I was sexually abused from age 3 to 11. And going through that particular, those traumas and episodes is what led me to the person that I am today. Um, I've been through a lot in and out of dealing with psychiatrists and counselors of that sort. And once I actually healed from being diagnosed with post traumatic stress syndrome, um, those things were able to help me realize that I needed to help. Now that I'm healed, I needed to help other girls and women that went through similar situations.
Mm, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, when you went through all this, how long did it take for you to actually just like put on that bravery shield and just, say, you know what, I need this help. I mean, was it like a just practice or how did you overcome it?
Well, throughout my teenage years, I kind of just swept it up under the rug. um, I didn't start to realize that I needed to heal from this particular abuse until I had my daughter. And when she turned the age I started getting molested, then those traumas started coming back because I was a parent that this wasn't going to happen to my daughter, and I was going to make sure it didn't happen. And the stress of trying to hover and protect her is what caused the trauma to come back. So I was about 25 when I started dealing with my issues of the past.
That it just it's really a sore subject because, like I said, I can only when you said your daughter, like I don't have any kids, but my niece is my world, and I just, I tell her like, hey, when somebody gives you a hug, man or woman, just you have to hug a certain way,
Right.
because and then we're in this virtual world, and we're in a world to where you don't know what the average person is thinking.
Hmm.
Somebody can just be as sane as Bill Gates or somebody, but you see these billionaires what they're doing now, and it's so scary. And I haven't been through anything like that because uh, I I I just haven't, and so I don't know how that feels. But just hearing your story, it started making me get goosebumps and just like chills because I'm like, dang man, this really happens. And
Yes.
and I commend you for being not only for coming on our show, but being as strong as you are to help others and use your pain. Because, I mean, do you still have any kind of like recollection or just kind of like any trauma of that still, even though you're still helping other people, or is it just, uh,
No, no. I can honestly say I can discuss it and it doesn't affect me like it used to. And that's why I say I've honestly healed. Because when you discuss something like that with others, you're vulnerable and you're scared, you feel victimized. And now you have to trust this information with other individuals. And I don't have a fear of that. So I am honestly healed and I'm willing and able to help other women and girls feel the same way I feel inside out.
wow. And for those of you who can't see us visually, you can just see the passion and like I say strength, Crystal. You can see the
Thank
strength on
you.
your face and just like, man, you are strong. And I'm like, I see why you're doing this. And like, because some people just tremble and it's like, but you say, hey, I got it behind me. Now it's trying to move forward. I'm going to push forward. And we're going to push forward more with Crystal because this is an amazing story, what she's doing. You don't want to miss out. We have more with Crystal and Christina on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. It's more of the Straight Up Show podcast on the other side of the break. Stay tuned.
Summer is approaching, that season where most friends and family travel, have family reunions, and enjoy that family vacation you've had over a year to plan. If you haven't had your vaccinations yet, there's still time. You might think you're fine now, but the reality is you're not. There's still contagious variants out there, and some states and cities are still behind on getting vaccinated. Don't ruin your family vacation by worrying about traveling in a hotspot. And don't be the one to cause a loved one at your family reunion to get sick. If you're still deciding on whether or not to take the vaccine, do some real research. And most of all, do what's best for you and your family. Take the politics out of it. And like everything on our show, think about it with an open mind.
All right, welcome back to the Straight Up Show podcast. It's me and Christina together today. We're tag teaming this thing. This is a very important issue. It's about just overcoming trauma, especially with women and girls who have been abused. Today we're joined by Christal Rhodes of Self Reflection Girls and Women's Organization out here in Dallas. So, Crystal, once again, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And so, you gave us your testimony and your story about you being a sexual abuse victim, and you overcame this, and you no longer have that trauma anymore. So you've been able to turn this trauma into strength. As I said, I saw the emotion of you telling your story, but it's strength. So how did just loving self and all this stuff going on, the healing and the coaching, how did you get into this?
Um, I started kind of coaching, not really coaching, not knowing that it was coaching on an app. Other women on another app. And I was doing it for like 2 years. They would always email me or want to chat with me about different things because they knew what I stood for on the app. And randomly, a couple of women would say, "You need to do this for a living." I was like, "I could do this for a living?" And I started investigating and doing my research, and it's considered life coaching. So I decided to open up a life coaching practice, Loving Self to Mental Freedom. And from opening up the Loving Self to Mental Freedom, I decided that those who could not afford, more on the low income demographic, is why I opened up the nonprofit of Self Reflection Girls and Women's Organization.
All right, so Krista, you were saying that you found an app. Like, what kind of app was it? Like, was it like just like like a dating app or?
No, actually, it started out as a chat app, more of a video chat app called Tango Live, and now it's turned into more of broadcasting, live broadcasting. So I had been on that app since 2003, and I've been off and on coaching women of that sort on that particular app.
So
Because
it's
if
kind of
you
like a
don't know anything about the app is more sexually driven, and a lot of women are doing things on the app for money.
right, kind of like an OnlyFans.
Yeah, I would say kind of like an OnlyFans.
Okay, and this and these are one that said, and if y'all listen to me, I'm tiptoeing a lot because I don't want to be insensitive. And you might hear me say that a lot because I just don't want to. I'm putting it out there. But like, do you think these women who do stuff like this, like these are victims of sexual abuse too, or do you think that's something that's why they kind of put themselves out there like that, or
Oh, of course. A lot of the women that I talk to on the app that are doing that have been sexually abused. And that's most of the reason why they feel comfortable, because it's been throughout their life. So it's, to them it's not anything wrong, because this is what they know, this is what they're comfortable with, this is how they set up their life, so they're okay with, showing things physically to a total stranger on the opposite side of the camera, and they're okay with that. But a lot of women start to realize that they're getting older and this is not the best way to earn money. And they feel comfortable talking to me about it. And that's how I guide them, out of the situation.
On your page, I browsed it for a moment earlier, and you
Okay.
tended to specify the ages of 13 to 45. Is there any reason why you start at that age and end at 45, or is that just kind of a range?
Oh, no, there's a reason behind it. I don't start earlier than 13 because of the simple fact that the child could not grasp the skills to start the healing journey. And I don't help women after 45 because there's medical issues that come to play, like menopause, um, early sets on dementia. So you start working into health issues, along with what I'm trying to teach for as healing.
and
I was very curious if that mattered or not, because I would understand not wanting to start it too young.
Hmm.
Because sometimes people do repress things, and some families do feel it's better to allow it to be repressed. But unfortunately, it comes back, like you had the experience with your
Hmm.
own child. And the sooner you can discuss it, the better your quality of life can potentially be later.
Hmm.
Um, and I was curious about the cutoff age, because I wondered if it mattered with, some people have lived their lives repressing it, and would it cause more damage bringing it back up? So not late in life, because 45 isn't that old or anything. I'm
Hmm.
30. So
Right.
it was a matter of wondering why that age range was so specific, because you mentioned it a few times on there. So,
Right. With women, there's early menopause. You start working into more of a health and medical background. And that tends to interfere with what I'm trying to teach. If they got health issues going on, menopause and hormonal imbalances, then that works, way on the opposite scale of what I'm able to do. So as I would tell anyone that ever asked me, I'm like a pimp. I want to get them as early as possible, so then they don't have the same issues into adulthood like I did. But doing my research, the earliest to feel safe and comfortable where they can comprehend what I'm teaching is 13.
it's fine. Well, I won't ask that necessarily so invasive, but about how young have you coached?
The youngest I've coached is 16.
Mm, Still really early.
it
So
is.
hopefully, did she respond well? Does she, accept it well?
Yes, she did. I actually have her posted on um my Loving Self page because she went through the Loving Self. She actually went through it and she's healing and she's about to graduate and head off to college.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I love hearing
Hmm.
stories like that, and
Hmm.
it's so scary because it just sounds so bad. Back in my day, we didn't have like much social media, so like
Right.
it is it's it's a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because there are more predators out there, and there's
Hmm.
more people that can be victimized. It's a blessing because you can expose these people, now. You know, um, so like I said, you had a 16-year-old, and so no telling what that's and that's I'm not a parent, but like my
Right.
biggest fear is that I know how people are, especially when you work in the news. I see a lot of stuff that's happening. It's not just not just with girls, because I worked on a story, and God bless his soul, to where this guy pretended to be a 13-year-old little girl, and he sexually abused a 13-year-old boy. He plays a taxi driver and picked him up, and but all because of social media. And so there's countless of stories like that that's not being exposed and stuff like that. And so, with that being said, like, do you find that most of these women, are they meeting people online, like these younger girls? Is that like the younger they are, the more they just got tricked on social media, or a catfish or something like that?
I would say 70% is in the household, relatives, friends of the family. Um, I they're easy to be susceptible to the child because nobody thinks, okay, that's your cousin, that's your brother, your uncle. You know, they won't ever do anything like that. So most of it comes within the family, within the household.
And I was
And
trying
social media do play a role in that,
to.
but not as much as being vulnerable in the household with these predators.
I was trying to find this. It was a meme, but it's one of those like hard hitting memes to where it's like, and this is culturally that black people would talk about the smart son in the home, call him like make fun of his intelligence, but won't acknowledge the predator in their family. I mean, do you think that's kind of like a true statement, or
It is.
and it is. I'm trying to figure out how to word this the right way. Like, do you think it's a cultural problem? Like, man, I'm not saying just like black people, but people of color at all, or are you getting any, I guess, white advocates at all, or white?
I have consulted with more white on the Love and Self side, but the nonprofit side is more African American.
This is it's a lot to take in. Um, so when it's coming to the loving side of it, we're shifting gears in the loving side of it. This is a lot to take in, and like 16 or 13 to 45. You know, when a girl's 13 or somebody's 13, they grown. They think they're grown, but you can't tell them nothing. Like, so when you're on these apps and stuff like that, is I mean, how often is, like you said, you said, but two or three girls actually say, hey, you should do this for a living? Like, is the message from especially the dual's age gap, is it often received, or like especially with the younger? How do you connect to the younger audience compared to somebody who's 33 or 23, already out the house already?
True. That's a good question. I listen. Most of the time, teenagers just need you to listen and not advise. Once you build a trust and they can trust you just to listen, then you can go to the next step and you can ask them, well, are you wanting my assistance? What is it that you're wanting me to do to help you? And when you ask that question, you're giving them control. You're not controlling the situation or the relationship between coach and victim. You allow the teenager to come to you, and however that is, it could take months at a time, you know, at their own pace. You don't force it. When you start to force it, is when you lose it and they don't feel comfortable. They tend to run away from it. You allow them to open up to you.
right? And it's that, and I guess like that's where some parents have trouble at when they try to force it. Like
Hmm.
say, hey, how can you tell your mom or your dad that, hey, you know, Uncle such and such touched me? Like,
Hmm.
how do you, you say you can't force it, but if you're a parent, how do you get your child comfortable and I guess trustworthy to say, hey, if something like this happened, this trauma has happened, like how do I get them as a parent, my 16-year-old, 13-year-old, how I can say, hey, you know what, if you can, this is a safe space, how can I get them to that safe space where if I ask them that question, they don't have to be embarrassed or they don't have to be ashamed. I mean, because some kids they'll take this to their grave that
Right.
they've been touched or sexual abuse. How do you I guess as a parent, how do you get them comfortable enough to say yes, it's happened or no, it's never happened, or make them not feel as uncomfortable or embarrassed?
Well, first you just let them know. You use scenarios. Maybe you heard something on the news, or you have a friend that has a daughter around about your daughter's age, and you just go to them and you say, "Well, I have a friend of a friend, and her daughter had this going on." And I want you to know if anything has happened to you in that way, you're come to me. This is a safe place. I'm going to listen. Just come to me. And a lot of times most teenagers do journaling. They rather write it down and hand it or leave it on the mother's dresser or mail it to them in the same household instead of going to them and handing it to them.
So, and I'm glad that was brought up because that was one of the questions I actually had for you was
Mm.
about, how does a person who is not necessarily a family member or anything, but how would you go about, advising them to approach? But you answered that very well and like very clearly. So I hope listeners comprehended that well enough.
Okay.
Um, but speaking on the term of abuse, does your organization only primarily work through sexually abused women and children, or what else? What constitutes as the abuse for you, and what you handle?
I specialize in the sexual abuse part, but what I will be doing in the future is networking with other counselors and life coaches that will specialize in the abuse, the violent side of it, and we will kind of have like a network of individuals that specialize in all forms of abuse.
I hope that it works very smoothly. I hope people respond to it well.
So I want to transition. I keep saying this young age because I feel like, like you said, we have to catch them early. You know what I mean? You want to
Hmm.
catch them early because, I mean, I know in our community, especially where I grew up from, like I was 16, 17. I had to figure life out on my own. My mom was there, but she had some issues that she really couldn't help me out with. And I was being adolescent. I was like, man, you can't tell me nothing. My hormones going crazy. I'm just like wilding out. And, you know, I was lost. Luckily, by the grace of God, I had a group of people who wanted to just, hey, you need to calm down and, get your life right. But there's some people out there, especially I know back in my neighborhood, who don't have that privilege of
Right.
having somebody to hold them down and say, hey, you tripping. Like, you have to get yourself together. Like, I mean, because these people, that's one of the people who have to get the easy money. Because whether it is black men, we get the gun and we start doing stupid stuff, or is it black women or people of color, they just go to the internet and start doing other stuff like that. And it's
Hmm.
people who, and whether it's gangs or whether it's pimps or whatever, they know that these adolescents or these teenagers are vulnerable because they don't have that structure at home, right? So when you grab these children and they actually, they've been abused, and I'm just kind of painting a scenario right now, and they actually are in high school and stuff like that, right? And then, this is what you and I talked about before. Do you think it's harder to be to feel loved or want to be loved in a relationship after this, whether it be parent or boyfriend or girlfriend? Like, do you think that the loving aspect of feeling loved, feeling wanted, this can be impacted by this?
Oh, definitely. Sexual abuse impacts every aspect of your life, not just being in a relationship. With my own personal experience, it affected how I got up every morning. I was always getting up bitter, angry, holding this in and blaming the world for what I've been through. And when you have that type of energy and vibe, everything goes wrong after that. Just getting in the car to drive to the store, you meet someone and you're flipping them off and they're angry, you're angry, and it ruins the whole vibe of your life because you have this that you're holding and it's so heavy, and all you want to do is just carry it. You don't want to tell anybody and you just want it to go away. Well, the more you fight against those emotions, the worse you are. If you start to feel those emotions, say it out loud, speak it. This happened to me. Even if it's no one in the room, you have to verbally say it out loud in order to start dealing with the fact that you need to heal from it. Because I was miserable. I was a miserable being. I was always angry and making up excuses why I couldn't do things in life and shutting down for weeks at a time and no one hears from me. I was a horrible person, and I hate to say that, but I was, because I was dealing with something that no one else knew what I was dealing with.
Wow, just a brave person. All right, here comes the conservative part. I'm about to play
Okay.
devil's advocate, okay? Um, and I just say that jokingly for some people who are out there going to criticize me. Um, so people want to speak it out, but do you think and I know, but there are some people. I mean, from the people who don't understand, or the people who are not in those people's shoes, right? Do you think that there are some people or some women or girls, especially younger girls, who want the attention? Do you think that a lot of them cry wolf? They just
No,
they just say it out loud to say, you know what, I'm gonna say this and this is get me out this scenario.
no. They're saying it to see how the individual that they're saying it to will respond to it, because actually they're needing that attention. They're at that time, that person is being vulnerable and wanting someone to say, "What happened? Are you okay? How can I help you?" And that's the only way they're able to verbalize it. And they're ready. Once they verbalize it out of their mouth, they're ready to heal.
And I want to stick to the theme of relationships, and this is what you and I talked about outside the show.
Right.
And like I said, I'm a very I love going into female groups because the more, because to me, to be a uncle of a young little girl that I love so much, that what the way I carry myself now is a reflection of how she's going to act and treat herself, and she carries herself
Right.
as a woman. Even though her mom is doing a great job, I think me as a male figure in her life, I have to carry myself the way better than I was in college. Because I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I mean, I'm a guy. I'm in college, and I was chasing girls. That's just me being honest with myself, and that's my truth. But at the same time, I see how me being insensitive has impacted women, and I was in a room to where these women were talking about their abuse and how men treated them, and you know, and with the men there, they felt so attacked, and they were so quick to respond, and all they wanted to do was just vent. That's it,
Mhm.
and not
Ex-
let us. But and it's kind of like they wanted us to be the punching bag, but they wanted us just to listen. And
mm,
it took me, because I'm like, man, what but I was ready to buck up and just talk back. But the more and more I kept going and listening, there was so much trauma within that room. And this is like Hispanic women, Black women, and sprinkling a little white women. But these are women in our community that were so hurt that all they wanted was us just to listen. So
mhm.
I say that to say this: if this is a scenario, I guess, you know, 13, you were sexually abused, and you kind of get past it, and you keep it hidden so long. You put on that thick skin, and you go to school. You don't go on OnlyFans. You just go through school, but knowing that you've had this sexual abuse hidden away, nobody knows you went through it. So you go to college or high school, and you start to fall in love, And then so there's a gentleman, and you and him are nice. He treats you well. He's not looking for anything else. He's treating you nice, and you feel like this one is the one, and you're feeling in love. But then you have that moment to where y'all get intimate, and then she closes down. So, and this is probably, I would say, 90% of guys.
Hmm.
They take that as an insult, like they're the problem.
Right.
So they're gonna be like, this is me playing devil's advocate. You know what? I don't want to be with you anyway. If you're not gonna get, because sex is driven hard a lot in our culture, especially in the millennial days.
It is.
It's very driven. So and you thinking with your, whatever. And so, but instead of us younger guys not listening, about the trauma and actually understanding it, she's too embarrassed to say what happened to her because she doesn't want to have this love that she has. How can us guys not be? I know it's going to be listened, but how do we how do we deal with that as men? To say, hey, you know what? We know that you've been through stuff. We're still here from you, but I guess not get our sexual urges mixed up with love. You know what I mean? Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
It does. And men have a issue with that because, like you said, they think mostly with their private area, and that's all they're thinking about at that time. So they're not opening up to what she may be really going through, and that just proves that she hasn't healed. Because if if she's healed before she actually got into the relationship, those things doesn't don't happen. She's able to say, this is what happened to me, please don't do this, please don't do that, something that would trigger her past. And a lot of times that's the issue, is when men, even husbands, I've dealt with husbands that got married, and they dealt with this woman up until marriage, and then this woman comes out, the wife comes out with it 2 and 3 years in the marriage, and he's really crazy, like, I don't know what happened, what did I do, and all I want to do is just have sex. I want to have sex with my wife. And that's all he's thinking about. But she's needing him to find patience with her. Don't force, don't ask. Wait for her to come to you. When you start seeing signs that she's straying away from sexual activity, it's not about you. Stop being selfish in that moment. It has to be something else. She's gotten to this point and now she's not having sex with you. It's not about you. It's about her and what she's dealing with. So try to display patience with her. And the more you display patience and you wait for her to come around, it's going to make her fall in love with you all over again, because you're showing a side that she's not used to, and it's going to make her fall in love again, and she's going to want to work through those issues so she can please you.
Yeah, but
Christina?
basically, and I'm not meaning this in any type of like, well, it is negative in a way. I was like, but as long as they're remembering that it's not going to be a fair situation, I
Hmm.
think that's easy to take, because I think that's very hard for a lot of people to swallow. You're like, well, she's not even, it's not that she's shut down. She's mean. She's really aggressive with me, because there's a lot they're going through. So
Hmm.
it's going to get really hard on you, and you've got to decide which is only fair to you as the individual if you think you can handle it, especially if that person cannot verbalize it. So I'm just definitely not going to be the person to kind of say, just hold your tongue. I was like, do it if you can. Try your hardest, try your best to hold out, but
And
it's
that's
not
not
going to
what
be easy.
I'm
It's not going
saying.
to be fair.
That's
But if
not what
you,
I'm
hmm
saying. I'm not saying hold your tongue.
hmm
He must display how he's feeling at this time, and she knows. But if he has to verbalize it, and kind of just let her make the action. Don't say, you haven't given me this and this and this, and all of a sudden you're not having sex with me. You're either gonna have sex with me, or I'm gonna cheat on you, or I'm gonna find someone else. Don't be insensitive like that. It's something else going on. Verbalize that you feel neglected, and give her the time to make the action on how to improve the situation.
And
So
that being said, what resources are there for people other than victim included? But what other resources are out there for a person who's going through that? Like, there's no self help or guideline. There's no instruction manual to
Right.
how to be the caregiver in this case. So
Mm.
what's available for people to look up and try to just from your experiences yourself, do you know any sites or groups or anything for the caregivers?
There are groups. You Google sexual, um, what is it? It's um, the spouse of a sexual abuse victim groups, and you Google that and see if there's any groups in your area, or you can just enlist a counselor, someone that deals with the spouse dealing with sexual abuse or any type of abuse. And there's always sources there. You just have to research them.
and I think that plays really big on commitment to that relationship.
Hmm.
Because if being on the negative side and playing devil's advocate, that would make me feel like I have to walk on eggshells. You know what I mean? Like if I say one thing, because I like any relationship, you don't want to be a trigger to somebody at all.
Right.
Because I ain't lying. I avoid some people, some dating because I don't want to trigger to past relationships. And I think that's outside of being sexual abuse, but like
Hmm.
my biggest fear in a situation like this would be to be like walking on eggshells. I don't want to do the wrong thing and be a trigger. Does that make sense?
It does. Um, I don't think if it's more of a sexual abuse, if you're just having regular conversation and daily activity, I don't think you will be a trigger. The only trigger would come when you're trying to force her to be sexually active with you.
Whew, it's a lot. Wow, that's a lot. And like I said, I think
If it's a lot to hear, how do you think it is being in it?
Yeah.
Just always think of it that way because
yeah,
it's
and I'm not trying to think
nonstop
about
for that person.
yeah, and I'm trying to think about myself. It's just that I want to be as sensitive as possible. And I'm not talking
Right.
about me specifically. I'm talking about just as a man. I want to be,
You know,
just because I think a lot of it is just listening. You know what I mean? And
mhm,
I think and patience, yeah, and patience, and
mhm,
and like I said, just me personally, like it's just that I'm learning a lot because I mean I'm not the best person to date. I had my flaws, and I was very insensitive. You know what I mean? Because at one point it was like a competition. You know what I mean? Who can you talk to the most? And
right.
especially in high school, how many numbers did you get? How many numbers did you get? And it's like you don't really think about because and this is me putting myself in a line of fire. I've done stuff that I thought was so minimal to girls in my past that 10 years later that they still think about that,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's like that really made me take a step back. Plus having a niece too, which is like, man, just if she ever went through this, I would go crazy. And it's just, and I'm not, and some guys say, oh, this is making you look weak. I said, no, man, because at some point in my life, I want to give the same love that I want to somebody else. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so and I'm not getting younger. I mean, I'm kind of heavy set. My pickings are slim. So I want to get, I'm just messing with myself. I'm not
Uh,
selling myself short. Still single. You can hit me up in my DM. I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying that like I want to have this might be far fetched, but I want to have the old school love to where like we can
right.
talk to each other and like if you're going through something or if you've been through something, like let's work it out. And if we can't work it out together, let's get some counseling so we can do this. Because like I said, like just to like me being insensitive to some people back in the day and to have that still impact them 10 years later, that hurt me and that hurt my character,
Right.
and I was just being a stupid young person, not being sensitive. So, wow, this is a lot. Crystal has definitely come on our show and dropped some gems and, gave us some stuff. We're going to talk about ways that you can help her in her organization on the other side of the break. Make sure you stay tuned to the Straight Up Show podcast.
Tired of the same old boring clothes? Want to support your favorite podcast but don't know how? Well, you're in luck. The Straight Up Show podcast store is finally here. In our Teespring shop, you can find all the merch that tells the world you're keeping it straight up. From t-shirts to masks to even leggings, our store has you covered. Just visit straightupshowpodcast.com and click that merchandise button. That's STR8 upshowpodcast.com.
So far, our season finales have always been about celebrating straight up hitting a milestone. But this year, we're celebrating with you. This year, we want to celebrate with you by answering any questions you may have about the Straight Up crew, show, or just general questions. I would like to say anything goes, but who knows? You've probably heard worse on our show anyway. Send us your questions by emailing us at straightupshow@gmail.com or by messaging us on social media, Instagram if you need a preference, or our website. Links will be in the description, and yes, we do accept video messages.
All right, so we're back here on the Straight Up Show podcast, joined by Christal with Love Yourself to Mental, and just a great organization. We're here with Christina as well. Christal, so you was trying to tell me about dating and the things that you went through with dating and being a victim of sexual abuse. So what were you trying to tell me? I'm sorry to cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. I was trying to tell you I went through a similar situation with a guy, and those men that they exist. You just have to, pick well. I dated a guy a total of 9 years, and I knew him before we started dating. And we only dated when my daughter was over to her dad's house on the weekend. And a lot of times he would come over and my daughter wouldn't go over. Her dad would say, "Oh, I can't get her this weekend, so I'm stuck. I'm trying to date, and then I have my daughter, and I'm trying to be this mama bear to make sure these things doesn't happen to her." So if he would spend the night, we would be in the living room watching TV, and he would say, "I have to use the restroom." So I would literally walk him to the restroom and wait by the door because my daughter's bedroom was right by the restroom. And I would walk him back into the living room. And if he would spend a night, I made him sleep on the opposite side so I could feel him get up. Even though I was a light sleeper, I could feel him get up and cross over. And I would say, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I'm going to the restroom." And this happened for months on end. And about 6 months into the relationship, he says, "Wait, this has to stop. When are you going to stop this? You can't follow me everywhere as long as my daughter was in the house." "Yes, I can. If you have to go to the kitchen, I'm going to the kitchen with you." I had issues with trust, and I didn't want the fact that I wanted to date. I didn't want my daughter to be susceptible of something happening to her because her mom wants to date and have a life as well. So those situations do happen, but there are some patient guys, and he's African American, so there are some men out there that are willing to be patient and help you through the situation.
No, but that story, I mean, of course it's valid, but I said that story in particular is a very relatable one for people who've been through something because it happens really quickly. You'll hear the stories about, you'll hear the normal ones overnight, this happened, or she would go to the store and this would happen, but it could also happen really quickly, just from the couch to the kitchen. You don't
Hmm.
know what he's done in that 30 seconds. And she does it. Sometimes it's so fast, they don't know what just happened in those 30 seconds.
Hmm.
It adds up. So it's more than a paranoia. It's because your brain can't cut off because you think of all those things and those times that something happened. But just like you were saying, there's a lot of guilt and feelings of being ashamed and embarrassed because of things that have happened to you when you were younger before you could even handle it. Where you just like, oh, you don't want to date because you're afraid something could happen to her, and then you'll hold that even longer and it'll be even heavier because you're like, just because I wanted a boyfriend,
Hmm.
I wanted to date somebody, this happened to my child. And I mean, you do want to believe you would be able to stop it. You do want to believe that you've picked well, and you do want to believe, you know uh that if your child does come to you and say something happened, that your first reaction would be to act. You want to believe those things, but you don't want to take the risk. So
Mhm.
you get extra aggressive about it, and you get very on high alert, and you just do the best you can. But I'm happy to hear that you were able to be with somebody for that long who
Mhm.
was willing to wait, because they are there. There's always, it's not just on Hallmark. It's not just a Lifetime movie. They exist.
And then
So just
there
pick as
was
wise
pros
as you can.
and cons of that. I stayed in the relationship even though I didn't love him anymore. I felt like he was the one I could trust. So I felt I needed to stay in that relationship because I didn't want to have to trust someone all over again. And I stayed in it that long knowing that I wasn't in love with him. And so that was the con of that, because I could trust him. He's been there through in and out of psychiatry, and I could trust him around my daughter. So I stayed in that relationship that long because I was able to trust him.
Wow. Um, that's a lot to go through. That's a lot to balance.
It is.
Now you're Crystal Rose, man. She is strong. I said at the beginning of the show, she is very strong, and that's just I'm just trying to wrap my mind about all of that and just how you balance all that. And then um, I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, then we'll let you go.
Okay.
Um, as a parent, because and it's not just being forced sexual abuse. I mean, sexual abuse can be the way you hug somebody, and the way you look at somebody. A lot of people don't know that, and as a parent, how do you how do you prepare yourself for like or warning signs, or how do you try to prevent this before it even is happening? Like, I mean, like, because people always say stranger danger and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
but how can it as a parent? Because, like I said, me, like, because I know how I think working in the news really traumatized me because I know how people are, and I think that whole thing about the whole cab driver thing that really messed me up. As a parent, how do you prepare, or how do you try to prepare yourself to not deal with this, but like Chrissy said, not your first reaction is to, go off the handle. I know I would.
Right. I started with my daughter at 4, with different scenarios. And even if things like this happened on the news, I would make her come and we would sit down and watch it together. I wanted to bring it more so as a reality and not something that I'm just saying. So if she could see that this stuff was happening, she can say, okay, this is something really happening. My mom is discussing something with me. But I was so aggressive, not knowing that she couldn't handle that. And as I stated before, her dad, him and I were separated, and she would go over there every other weekend, and I would kind of coach her like, when you take a bath, what are you supposed to do? And we're going through this scenario. Your dad can't come he can't come in the bathroom with you. You lock the door once you go in if you have to use the restroom. Nobody's supposed to be sleeping in the bed with you. Nobody's supposed to touch you. And we're going through this whole scenario. This is like every other weekend. And she's 4. And she's like, Mom! She yells out like, stop, and I had to look, I had to step back. She's 4. I'm traumatizing her with my own issues, but I was trying to protect her, but the way I was going about it was wrong. So all I can say is just be open and honest with your kids. Give them the scenarios, let them know that these things happen and it could be worked out. Don't be afraid to open up if something like, even if you feel like your uncle has pinched your shoulder and you felt like that's sexual abuse, let's talk about it. If he pinched you too hard somewhere, let's talk about it. Even if you don't believe the situation is we must discuss it. Communication is key, especially in the Black community. our generation of mothers and fathers, what they decided to do when way back then, and my mom was one of the victims of sexual abuse, but she didn't tell me until after I got 40. So she's 75, and she's just now opening up to me about her rape. So she swept all of this up under the carpet throughout her life, and it was like that back then. You, whatever happened to you, you didn't say nothing, you closed your mouth. And it's a generational curse, because it's going from the next generation to the next generation to the next generation. And then you have all these African American people with mental issues and having healed from trauma and having opened up about things that has happened to them as kids. And then they're raising kids that are unhealthy because there are unhealthy parents, and it really makes me angry in a sense that that our parents just not strong enough to handle things and be able to raise children in a proper way. Because if she was able to heal from that, she would have been able to warn me as a little girl, and then I would have been able to open up if that happened to me, and then I wouldn't have lived half of my life in misery. So that is really a touchy subject to me when it comes to our generation, and that's why I formed Self-Reflection Girls and Women's Organization to deal with the demographic of mostly African American individuals that are going through things, and you are telling them it's okay. It's okay. Come out, talk about it. It's okay. The only way we can heal is we heal within. And once we heal within, the happiness and the freedom comes out. And then we're able to love freely. We're able to not feel so aggressive towards things because we got all this stuff bottled inside of us. So if I can help heal one person throughout their sexual abuse, I I would just be so honored, because that one person is going to help another person, and then that other person is going to help another person, and then we're going to have a healthy generation of women, girls that's turning into women, and that's what I want to see throughout the organization, is women healing and helping each other.
That was you about to have me in tears right now. That was powerful. Um, just I'm speechless right now. So that's why I think that if you're listening right now, you have to research self-reflection girls and women's organization, because like they do help abuse girls and women in especially in the Dallas area right now, but they are working to empower women and girls to become stronger and healthier, and like just have that positive mindset to achieve and become better women of tomorrow. And that's just, I mean, Kristen, sister, I mean, you strong. Like
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you so much for coming on our show. And um, if people want to help you and help the Self Reflection of Girls Women organization, tell us how they can help you out and donate to you, or maybe call you, or things like that. Tell us how they can reach you.
Okay, I can be reached through our nonprofit website. It's www.selfreflectiongirlsandwomen.org. And I can also be reached by phone at 1-8333-356-8464.
Okay, and there you have it. Of course, we'll have all the links down below, or if you're listening, we'll have it in the description of the podcast.
I'm gonna ask, do you have any words of encouragement or anything to kind of help the people who are on the fence or those that are capable of helping them with opening up and reaching out to organizations like yours?
Right. I do have some words of encouragement. Um, Find someone that you can totally trust. It's easier to talk to your friends. Find a friend that you totally trust. Get your trauma out to them, and that's going to help you gradually get the professional help that you need. Because the more you talk about it, the more you reveal what happened to you, the more healing it is. And then you're able to open your heart up to more things to help you heal.
Well, thank you, and I hope somebody hears that, takes it to heart, and actually applies it.
Yeah, no, I
Hmm.
do too. So I guess y'all. I mean, we always talk about join our team. Like this is a team you should join, and give give help to Crystals, and especially if you are one of these powerful women who've overcome things like this with sexual abuse or abuse, and you had a lot of self reflection of yourself, and you were able to overcome that and be empowered by loving yourself more, and you can contribute. Definitely go to Self Reflection Girls. I make sure I get this right. I don't want to mess it up. Make sure you go to Self Reflection Girls and Women's.org, and join the conversation and join them, and not only just give if you want to donate to the group because they just started out, but you see what you can do to help out because there are so many people out there who don't have a voice. That's one of the reasons why we have Crystal on our show because we need to amplify this. Like she said, there's so much. I talked about a meme earlier, and I talked about how in the Black community we'll down the smart people in our family, but then we'll hide the fact that there's somebody in our family that's abusing, and we're so embarrassed by it. And that's not to me to be a sellout to my race and nothing like that. And I see this in the Latino community as well. But I am African American. I see this in my race a lot. But there's that stigma, and we have to hide it, and we're too embarrassed to talk about it. But we need these conversations right now, to where we talk about it because if we don't know what's going on if we don't speak out about it, and there's a mental trauma that can affect not only my generation but it's impacted Crystal's generation, Christina's generation, or Casey's generation. So, Crystal, thank you once again for coming on our show. We definitely want to extend an invitation for you to come back in our show to tell us how the organization is, and we hope that this show will help amplify the voice of your organization.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So with that being said, that is the end of our show. We want to thank you for listening to us today. Make sure you go to our website, get all our merchandise here of our previous shows at straightupshowpodcast.com. That's STR8UP showpodcast.com. I can't believe I got it all right this time. But we want you to join the conversation, not only with Christal Rhodes and her team, but with us too, because where there is a voice, we want to amplify and make sure all ears, those who are willing to listen, so we can help you the right way. Until then, there's only one rule to our show is gotta be really there you go, Christina got it. All right, y'all take care. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.